Here's Chapter 3 of Weavers of Light. I certainly invite you to post on the blog and go to weaversoflight.com or .net and tell me what you think. And if you catch any mistakes or have any comments, put them there. Thanks. Chapter 3, Rory at Home. Rory barged through the door and called out, "I'm home." Leon called from the kitchen, "I'm in here, mijo. Did you have a good time? Any bug bites?" Rory walked through into the kitchen. Leon was busy, as usual, at the stove. Leon put a plate of migas on the counter and Rory chewed. Rory's dad, Javier, was an archaeologist. Rory had been going with him on digs for most of his life. 8 years ago, they both caught jungle fever on a dig in Belize, and Leon, the camp's cook, had nursed them back to health. Leon had been Rory's other dad ever since. Quickly inhaling the food, Rory replied, "Kind of weird. I need to talk to Dad." Leon looked Rory up and down, then wrinkled his nose. "Hijo, you smell like a campfire, and you look like you might have rolled in it, too. Javier is back in his office, but clean up before you go talk to him. The room's too small for all your odor." Rory saluted. "Promise." He headed up to his room. Leon called to his back, "Rory." Rory turned back around. Something in Leon's voice had warned him. "He's pretty upset. Ellen sent a letter." Rory felt a rush of anger. His mom, Ellen, never wrote unless she was trying to cause trouble. She had left Rory and Javier when Rory was just 2, and they only heard from her when she found a new way to upset things. He sighed. What she figured out this time? Leon came over and took his shoulders. "I'm not sure, mijo, but it's a biggie. He's been stewing in there since he got it." Leon kissed Rory's forehead again. "We'll get through it. We always do. But he needs a little distraction, and you are the best thing for that." Rory nodded and turned. "But shower first," said Leon with a grin, and turned back to his cooking. Rory turned to go and called back, "Okay, but first I need to run up to your bathroom. I want to wipe my pits all over your face towel." "You do that, and I'll burn the towel and throw you on the fire, too." But Rory was already gone. A little later, and much cleaner, he knocked on his dad's office and stuck his head in. The office was piled with books, papers, and archaeological objects Javier was studying. A picture of Leon and one of Rory and one of Leon's intricate wooden carvings of a Mayan god they discovered on a dig were the only things not related to his research. "Dad?" His father looked up. Javier's whole face drooped. "What is it?" asked Rory. Leon said there was a letter. Javier shook his head and sighed. Rory had never seen his dad so down. Javier was about the most cheerful person he ever met. It was almost irritating, especially in the morning. Once, when they were on a dig, they had been caught in a sudden rainstorm. The entire sky had filled with lightning, and thunder was so loud it hurt their ears. The water came roaring out of the sky like a river. There was no real protection, and they were both instantly soaked. They couldn't stand under a tree because of the lightning. They found shelter in a small indentation in the sheer rock face of a mountain not big enough to be called a cave. Javier had looked at him with a huge smile and said, "Scream to the thunder gods. We can scream as loud as we want, and it won't bother anyone." So, in the middle of the forest, in the middle of a rainstorm, they both screamed and screamed and screamed until they were so hoarse they couldn't talk for 2 days. After that, when they were in a place they were supposed to be quiet, one would turn to the other and whisper, "Thunder gods," and they'd crack up thinking about what would happen if they started to scream like they had in that rainstorm. When Rory saw his father's look, he knew that Ellen had come up with a new and particularly devious plan. This was not the time to talk about the rock. As usual, Ellen had come up with a way to make sure she was first in line. "Ellen's threatening to sue for full custody," said Javier. "She wants no visits, no contact between you and me." "Isn't that my choice? I'm not a kid. I'm almost 14. "No, actually it isn't. Until you're 18, if there's a dispute, the courts decide." "But why should she want that? She's never cared." "She cares, but in her own way. We've talked about this. We can't just think she's evil. She really believes it's bad for you to be around me and Leon. She also thinks it's bad for you to be wandering around the world on digs. That's one of the reasons I took this job, so we could have a more stable home. But she doesn't want a kid. You know that. I know that. She's gone to a judge who thinks gays shouldn't raise kids. She's painting a picture that you're a boy living with two older men, and Rory held up a hand. I get it. I hear that every time I move to a new school. Javier nodded. I know. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm used to it. I just ask if that means all the straight dads are messing around with their daughters. That usually shuts them up. So why can't we say the same thing here? Then ignore them. No, if we ignore them, they will assume we're doing something wrong. I'll call my lawyer tomorrow. It may be that your mom just wants to create a scene and she'll give in once she gets bored with it or gets some money. But if they order it, we have to play by their rules. This sucks. You're right, it does. Javier pointed a finger at Rory. But don't use words like that or I'll wash your mouth out with soap. Rory grinned. You'll have to catch me first and watch out. I bite. He went to his dad and hugged him. If I have to go, I'll go. And I'll be totally awful, and Ellen will get tired of me really quick and be begging you to take me back. I'm sorry, kid. It's a big burden for you. Shut up. You're my dad. So's Leon. That's just the way it is. At least you stuck around when Ellen left. Javier punched him in the arm and grinned. Only because you worked on digs for free and could fit down the small holes when we were exploring. Now that we aren't going on digs, maybe I should rethink this whole thing. No chance. You're stuck on me. If you send me away, I'll just come back. I'm like a homing pigeon. You're more like poo on the shoe. I don't care how much I wash. You still seem to hang on. Rory started to reply, but Javier held up his hands in surrender. I'm sorry. Give your old man the last word. It's been a long day and it's still early. He sighed. So, how'd it go last night? Weird, answered Rory. What happened? Must have been a dream, but I thought I was attacked by this storm cloud thing, and then an old grandfather showed up and rescued me. Are you okay? Did you try to run? You had your phone, right? Rory rolled his eyes. Yes, Mommy, I had my phone. But I didn't have time to call. I couldn't even get out of the hole. It happened too fast, if it really happened. And the creature came out of the fire like smoke. I thought I was toast, but the old guy appeared, blew up the cloud thing, talked a little, and then exploded in a burst of fireworks. Sounds pretty wild, but more likely a dream than an actual visitation. Unless, of course, you've gone totally wacky on me. Well, that's what I thought, but when I woke up, I found this in my shoe. Rory pulled out the rock and handed it to his dad. The grandfather was wearing it around his neck when he appeared. Javier took the stone casually, but after a quick glance, he swung his light over the stone and pulled a magnifying glass from a drawer. He bent over the stone, studying it with the intensity Rory knew from long hours on digs. From the expression on Javier's face, Rory knew that the stone was significant, at least to an archaeologist. Finally, Javier looked up. What did he say when he gave you this? He didn't give it to me. It was in my shoe this morning. One of the good things about having a dad that specializes in ancient cultures and their spiritual beliefs is that wild stories are not that uncommon. Rory could tell he wasn't going to be taken away to a rubber room. Javier was not questioning what happened. He was analyzing it. This stone is very unusual. It seems to come from different cultures in different places at different times. What do you mean? Well, look at the carvings. The four shapes look like fish, bird, bison, and snake. The problem is the snake looks like it comes from Corral, the ancient city in Peru. That's the place. It's the oldest civilization discovered in the Americas. And on the other hand, the bison glyph looks like it's from the Plains people, but we don't think of them as a very ancient civilization. Besides, they're a long way from Peru. Now, the fish is usually a symbol for people near the ocean, far from the plains. Finally, the bird looks like a thunderbird, which is a Pueblo symbol, and that's from around here. That's 4 different times and places. He did say he'd been watching for over 5,000 years, and this was the last chance. Javier looked close at Rory. What do you mean? He said there are lots of energy suckers, and they're about to take over. We need to activate the stone to stop them. How do we activate it? I don't know, but he didn't mean you and me. He wants me, Billy, Tima, and James to meet him at the hole tonight. Have you talked with them? Yeah, I didn't think they'd do it, but they're in. Javier was very excited. You've tapped into something big. I wonder how. He said it's had something to do with the hole. He called it a kiva. Pueblo cultures use kivas for spiritual ceremonies. I wonder why he thinks your hole is a kiva. Javier was looking at the stone again. You know, this rock itself is strange. It looks like pillow basalt, but the hole looks natural, not cut. You want to put that in my language, Dad? Pillow basalt is formed deep under the ocean. When there's a volcanic eruption, think bubbling magma oozing up. The water presses down and cools it, so it looks like little pillows. Rory nodded. But what's weird about the hole? Well, holes happen not underwater, but on the surface when magma is boiling and air gets trapped. On the surface, there's air, but no pressure, so no pillow shape. And the problem with this rock is, well, the two things can't happen at the same time. I mean, how can magma be coming out under the ocean yet have air from the surface? It's like the volcano was on the surface, the magma trapped the air, and it plunged deep under the water. That's another contradiction. Rory looked at his dad. So you don't think I'm nuts? Javier smiled and grabbed him into a hug. Of course you're nuts, but this isn't proving it. We've both seen plenty on digs that doesn't make sense. That doesn't mean it's wrong. Did he say anything else? He said he wanted to meet tonight because it's the night of the turning moon. That's the Zuni name for the June full moon. There's a theory that Zunis are the descendants from the ancient cliff dwellers. That's another angle to look into. Looking at Rory, Javier smiled. Well, two things are certain. What? First thing is that I'm going to spend some time thinking about something a lot more interesting than your mother. Well, that's good. What's the second thing? You are definitely going back there tonight.